Hey everyone, welcome back to Taoist Magick. Lord Josh here. Happy New Year to all. Let's see what 2021 has in store. If you haven't seen my previous video in the series, please check it out. I spoke all about a magical book called Concealing Method. It was during the creation of that video where I had this idea. I'm going to be talking about the incredible importance of emptiness and nothingness in Taoism, and I'll be sharing my tips on how to achieve this state of being for the purpose of ritual magic. So let's dive in. Firstly, what is emptiness and nothingness? Because there's a major difference in the way that cultures view this condition. For example, in the Western world, emptiness is generally viewed as being very negative. It's often linked with boredom, depression, loneliness, a sense of sorrow and despair, feeling incomplete. But in certain Eastern traditions, such as Buddhism and Taoism, emptiness is a sacred state of being. It's something that people want to achieve, and they will work at this for years by meditating to try and reach the realm of nothingness. True emptiness in Taoism is often associated with stillness, with non-existence, and non-being. To be empty is to see past the illusion of busyness and to realize you have ultimate potential. Once empty, the Tao can pour itself into you. If you are full, you become useless and limited, with no place for the Tao to call home. To the mind that is still, the universe surrenders. Within the Tao Te Ching on chapter 11, the usefulness of being empty is explained. 30 spokes connect to the wheel's hub, yet it is the center hole that makes it useful. Clay is shaped into a vessel, yet it's the emptiness within that makes it useful. Doors and windows are cut for a room, yet it's the space where there is nothing that makes it useful. Therefore, though advantage comes from what is, usefulness comes from what is not. It's a very common phrase in Taoism that the usefulness of a pot is the emptiness that it has. When you fill that void, what purpose does the pot have now? If you're a Westerner looking into Taoist topics, part of the journey isn't simply to learn new things about the Tao, but to try and unlearn the habits and concepts that you've picked up from your programming. We are conditioned and programmed in this part of the world at least, to always be busy, to always be working, planning, thinking, and filling every hour of the day with something productive. In other words, we distract ourselves from facing the void. We can't stand to think that our days are empty, and so we become prisoners to the concept of goal-oriented satisfaction. This, by the way, never satisfies you, nor does it ever lead anywhere conclusive. People will often say, well, I'm doing this to occupy my mind. I'm filling my mind with this task. Well, I would ask, why? Why do you need to occupy it? Why not just sit for a while and enjoy that empty state and see what it feels like? Because in the Western world, most people don't even try this. It scares them. They aren't used to it. When you run from emptiness, you also run from your own potential. When people look at me and see my lavish and extravagant lifestyle, they often think I represent abundance, opulence, having everything, not just fullness, but plentifulness. What they don't realize is that one gives weight, power, and legitimacy to the other, much like yin and yang. The most wonderful and detailed painting must have a blank canvas. The most epic novel spanning many chapters and pages must begin on blank paper. The greatest songs start from silence. Even a great YouTube channel starts off as a blank page. The foundation for creativity and art is based on nothingness first and foremost. Only when there is nothing can there be everything potentially. Even with your own body, when the stomach is empty, you enjoy food more. When the lungs are empty, only then can you take a full breath. There is a danger here though, especially with some people who regard fullness to be destructive. It's not at all. Non-being and being are opposite sides to the same coin. The key isn't to get rid of one for the other, but to use both to your advantage and accept that they are inseparable. When you see beyond the superficial, that does not mean you can't enjoy what it has to offer. I love wearing fancy smoking jackets and suits as much as the next guy. We all live in this material reality, but don't lose sight of yourself in the process. No matter how outrageous, I always wear my clothes, they never wear me. Even if you do desire that fullness, you'll never achieve it unless you can empty yourself first. That empty space that you have is sacred. So if you have to fill it, do so with something meaningful to you. Don't fill it with those trashy TV talk shows like some people. Most Taoists wish to mirror their minds in the image of the Tao itself, what is known as the pure mind. Taoist Master Zhuang says, "The still mind of the sage is the mirror of heaven and earth, the glass of all things. Vacancy, stillness, placidity, tastelessness, quietude, silence, and non-action. This is the level of heaven and earth, and the perfection of the Tao and its characteristics." So how does emptiness apply to Taoist magic in the context of a ritual? First of all, if you go into any spiritual situation with strong preconceived ideas, this spirit is evil and this one is good, if you bring a bias and a one-sidedness, you're already in self-sabotage mode. You're setting yourself up for failure because your mind isn't empty. You're coming into your temple with too many thoughts that will hinder you and bring you down. These days, I only step into my magic circle as a blank canvas. Emptiness is the fasting of the mind. This is why some Western magicians have trouble with Taoist occultism. In some groups and fraternities, you are taught the power of clear intention, willpower. And if you want something, all you have to do is think about it, think about that one desire and meditate on it. Well, that has its place, no doubt. I've done spells like that before, and it works very well. But there are other options out there. Lately, I've been approaching my rituals from the perspective of emptiness. It works better for me, and right now I'm finding I'm getting a lot better outcomes. Let me use this analogy. I write poems and have done for over 10 years. If somebody told me, "Here's a poem that is half finished, I want you to finish it," I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to finish it. To start from scratch, to create something from nothing is beautiful. It gives you total freedom. When you go into a ritual with overly strong intentions, borderline obsessions, you go in with baggage, with limitations, with borders, with constraints, with pressure. You put a ball and chain on your ankle and it becomes a drag. You're only doing this for one clear reason, a goal, such as a job promotion, and the path is already laid out for you. It's like you're plugging into a template. Part of being empty is being open to all possibilities and outcomes. Open does not mean you have to accept that outcome, but it means you can if you choose. It's about having unlimited options, and you don't get that by operating with such a narrow perspective. You're quite literally pissing away your own potential to go above and beyond, and you're doing it all to yourself. I don't know about you, but when I'm in the center of my magic circle, I don't like being controlled and restricted. We have enough of that in the mundane world, and most of it we do to ourselves in the pursuit of constant fullness. I prefer to treat each working as a white canvas, and I'll paint it how I wish. When I step on my altar, I have the mindset that anything could happen, and it's up to my discretion if I allow it to manifest. How can one achieve emptiness? Well, fasting is a major aspect of Taoist ritualism. Many Taoists fast to attain this state. It is thought that consuming food shortly before a ritual would cause trouble for the magician, as food has a tendency to absorb the practitioner's spiritual energy. In some cases, this is actually useful, as food grounds the sorcerer, and sometimes you do need that grounding. However, When working with most heavenly entities and spirits, young spirits, it is better to have an empty stomach. Some schools believe that it creates internal changes, which causes energy channels to open up inside of the magician, allowing for better communication with the divine. The physical feeling of hunger itself is a sign that you are empty enough to proceed with a ritual. Hunger creates what the Taoists call a yearning. I've got an experiment for you. Next time you feel very hungry, instead of going to eat, go practice a working and see the difference in your experiences. Everything will feel easier, and the less I say about it, the more you'll enjoy the experience. The more open you are in magic, the more enjoyable the process will be. Now, other sects won't necessarily fast, but they will tell you to cut out certain foods such as meat, because killing things is often frowned upon by the deities. They can get offended by it. A lot of adepts do have a vegetarian diet. Emptiness can obviously be found in other more mindful ways as well, the mindset being the most important. During my weather magic rituals, I no longer have the belief that I change the weather at my will. I now have the perspective that the elements change because the conditions are harmonious. So in other words, I see myself not as a change maker, but as a collaborator with nature. I work with the energies that are already there, and I foster them to do what they will. Have the mindset that things happen when they are ready, and sometimes encouragement is required, but you should never force something to happen. All the greatest things that have ever happened in my life have fallen into place largely on their own. I just give a little push here and there as I see fit. As the great Zhuge Liang says, the wise win before they fight, whilst the ignorant fight to win. I would also add that the wise magician would never fight against magic. If something isn't working, leave it alone and don't keep pressing the issue. That's a recipe for disaster. I'm going to share with you a technique I've been using for years that will empty your mind before a ritual. I'd like you to try this next time you have a working, just as an experiment, and get back to me and tell me how you felt. You have to be seated for this, either sit on the floor or in a chair and stare into a white colored candle. Try this for 4 nights, and each night focus on something different. The first night, light the candle and focus on your breathing. Listen to it as you breathe in and out. Think about nothing but breathing and don't take your eyes off the flame. Do this for 15 minutes. The second night, focus on your heart rate. Think about the rhythm and the sound it's making, again for 15 minutes whilst looking at the flame. The third night, focus on the sound of a clock ticking or a watch. Count the seconds, still looking at the flame burning. The fourth night, blow the candle out and simply focus on the wick and think about nothing. No sound, no movement, no desires, no expectations, no flame, no thoughts. Do this for as long as you see fit, and be sure to incorporate it into your regular routine. I guarantee that within 2 weeks of practicing this simple exercise, you will have greater outcomes from your rituals than ever before. A good friend of mine who is a Wiccan, which is a wonderful tradition, was getting tired with rituals. The outcomes were relatively mediocre, and then naturally frustration sets in. This person wanted several different things, so they tried to do several different workings and got burnt out. I said to them, do one working and get all of these wishes at the same time by using emptiness. The friend didn't believe that it would work, so I explained that abundance loves a blank canvas. It loves it. A dehydrated man craves water more than a fish. When you are vacant, you become magnetic. The magic finds you, you don't find it. It's like putting a signal out to the universe to say, I'm ready to receive your blessings because there is space within me to accommodate those things. You come to me now rather than me obsessively pursuing goal after goal. Have you noticed that a lot of sorcerers chase spirituality? They try too hard to find ascension by running after deities and struggling to get what they want. The magic owns them at this point, and they fail to realize it starts from within. They become prisoners of the process. After trying the exercise for 2 weeks, the friend did one ritual and ended up with 4 completely separate outcomes. Here's what they got: the ability to properly astral project for the first time, to raise $600 to buy a talisman of their choice, to remove a curse that had been put on a family member, and lastly, to meet a worthy Taoist adept who could be a teacher. The person wanted me to do it, and I don't do private teaching. Everything I do is on YouTube and on blogs and in the public. They got all of it. Every last request, they got it. And those 4 outcomes are unrelated to each other, so usually you'd have to do 4 different rituals. Instead of using willpower and intention to lift that curse or astral project, my friend was wise. They found out that magic is not linear. It does not operate in a straight line. And if you become magnetic, you pull the outcomes that you want into being, but you have to be empty for this to work. That means removing obstacles that you've put in the way. In other words, moving thoughts around and making yourself hollow. It's no good pulling things in if you don't have anywhere to store them. You need to make some space first. It's worth saying that not everyone likes this approach. Some magicians just don't resonate with emptiness. They don't enjoy it. And if you're one of them, that's fine. It's not a shortcoming at all. It's simply a matter of preference. I'm going to explain one of the most powerful methods of achieving emptiness. Now, you might be a bit confused at first, but hear me out. Sea magic. You might be thinking, Lord Josh, what the heck does sea magic have to do with this subject? Well, let me explain. Sea magic is a form of weather magic, and just like any form of weathermancy, it is terribly misunderstood by most. When you're on dry land, you're plugged into the earth. You're connected to earth chi, which means you are grounded. Grounding is useful for many things, but it works against you when you're trying to purposely disconnect. Being grounded to the earth is like having an anchor tied to you, because everything is solid. This changes when you go on a boat. I was raised in a family that has always been into boats and ships. My first cruise was at 6 months old. I was the youngest person on the whole ship. Here are pictures of me on the family boat in Spain in 2004, having a great time. Spent a lot of my childhood at sea and on the water. That's why I'm very much into nautical culture. I've noticed that when you're on a boat, that grounding disappears. That tether that connects you to earth chi is gone. You unplug from all that is solid. Those boundaries and limitations completely vanish because you are quite literally floating in the abyss, in the void, which means you are going with the flow. You are floating in emptiness. And this changes your emotional state completely. The ocean, the water itself is alive. And in Taoism, wind and water are the ultimate powers. Have you ever slept on a boat in calm waters? You get the best night's sleep you'll ever get. And my dreams are always much different than my regular dreams on land. The most empty I've ever felt was during my years on the Norfolk Broads, just sailing around. It's incredibly relaxing. I realize for most of you, getting away on a boat isn't an option, but you don't have to, because sea magic can open that door to blissful emptiness. By getting in touch with the ocean via ritual and via trance, you can experience the abyss to find out what it's like, to see if you like it or not. Using chalices of seawater and meditating next to the sea or a river can inspire this empty state of being. Only when you are lost can you be found. Only when you are empty can you be filled. Try one of the methods and see how they work for you. Very quickly before I sign off, I have recently created a Taoist Discord server for magic, rituals, mythology, history, books, feng shui. I've made some categories, as you can see, and it's a very lively place. We've already had some great discussions. If you want to join in, you are welcome to. Just click the link below, and I'll see you there. So thank you for watching. I'll be back soon with more Taoist magic. Take care.